All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Walt Disney. Imagine a young boy, barefoot, dusty, and wild with imagination, sitting under a tree in the fields of Missouri, sketching animals from memory. The year was 1906, and the boy's name was Walter Elias Disney. Born on December 5, 1901, in Chicago, Illinois, Walt grew up in a world that was anything but magical. His father, Elias Disney, was a strict, often stern man who believed in hard work, sometimes too much hard work. Walt spent much of his childhood on a small farm in Marceline, Missouri, where money was tight and luxuries like toys and games were rare. But even in the midst of hardship, young Walt found magic. In the trees, in the animals, in the stories he imagined when chores were done. He would draw on scraps of paper, on napkins, on anything he could find. While other kids played, Walt dreamed. While others worked, Walt created. But life was not kind. When Walt was just a young teenager, his family lost the farm. They moved to Kansas City, where Walt helped his father deliver newspapers at 4:30 in the morning. Every single day, rain or shine, bitter cold or stifling heat. There were days when he was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open in school. Yet he never stopped drawing. Dreams don't die easily, not in hearts like Walt's. He began taking night classes at the Kansas City Art Institute. He knew, somehow, he was meant for more. But dreams, even the brightest ones, are tested by fire. And Walt's test was just beginning. After serving briefly as an ambulance driver in World War I, Walt returned home with big ideas. He wanted to be an artist, an animator, a storyteller. He started small, designing ads for newspapers and local businesses. But that wasn't enough. He dreamed bigger. At just 19 years old, Walt opened his first company, Graham Studios in Kansas City. He hired a few artists. He made short cartoons. He even started working on a full animated version of Alice in Wonderland. People laughed. They loved his work. But there was a problem. No one was paying. Within a year, Graham Studios went bankrupt. Walt was 22 years old, completely broke, and so poor he often slept on the floor of his office, surviving on beans from a can. In one of the darkest moments of his life, he boarded a train to California with $40 in his pocket, a battered suitcase, and a reel of his Alice cartoon under his arm. He was chasing a dream that seemed more impossible by the day. In Hollywood, rejection followed him like a shadow. Every major studio turned him down. "Kid, animation is dead," they said. "Get a real job." But Walt refused to believe it. He finally scraped together enough to start another studio, this time with his brother Roy. They called it Disney Brothers Studio. Walt created a character called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and it was a hit. Finally, it seemed his luck was changing. But just when he thought he had made it, he received devastating news. His distributor, Universal Studios, had stolen the rights to Oswald. And even worse, they had poached most of his animators. Everything he had built, gone. Again. At 26 years old, Walt Disney stood on the streets of New York, betrayed, broke, and heartbroken. Most men would have quit. Most men would have accepted it wasn't meant to be. But Walt Disney wasn't most men. In that crushing moment of defeat, he made a decision that would change history. He would create a new character. He would bet everything on himself. He would not give up. On the long, grim train ride back to California, Walt sketched a new character, a cheerful little mouse. He named him Mortimer. But his wife, Lillian, thought the name was too serious. She suggested Mickey instead. And just like that, Mickey Mouse was born. But Mickey didn't become a star overnight. Walt faced financial ruin once again when no one wanted to distribute his first Mickey cartoon. So he decided to do something nobody had ever done before. He would synchronize the animation to sound. In 1928, he released Steamboat Willie. the world's first synchronized sound cartoon. Audiences loved it. Suddenly, Walt Disney wasn't just another dreamer. He was a revolutionary. Success followed. Silly symphonies, Donald Duck, Goofy, Pluto, beloved characters all springing from the well of Walt's imagination. And yet, he still wasn't satisfied. Walt dreamed bigger. He wanted to make a full-length animated movie, something the world had never seen. "It will never work," the experts said. "No one will sit through a 90-minute cartoon." Even his own wife and brother begged him to reconsider. But Walt Disney pushed forward. He poured everything he had, financially, emotionally, creatively, into the project. In 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs premiered. It was a sensation. It became the highest-grossing film of all time at that time. Hollywood and the world were stunned. Walt Disney had turned what they called Disney's folly into Disney's triumph. But he didn't stop there. Walt envisioned a place where children and adults could step into a world of fantasy together, a place where dreams would live. Despite massive financial risks, technical challenges, and widespread skepticism, Walt built Disneyland. It opened in 1955, and it wasn't perfect at first. Rides broke down. Plumbing wasn't finished. Critics mocked it. But Walt never focused on the problems. He focused on the magic. And soon, millions of visitors flooded Disneyland, enchanted by a world only Walt could have dreamed into existence. Later came Disney World, Epcot, movies, television shows, and an empire unlike anything the world had seen, all because a young boy refused to let his dreams die. Walt Disney wasn't a genius because everything he touched turned to gold. He was a genius because he failed spectacularly and kept going anyway. He was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination. He faced multiple bankruptcies. He lost characters. He lost friends. He lost millions. But he never lost faith. He believed when no one else did. And because of that, generations of children and adults found a place where they could believe too. Walt Disney's story teaches us: failure is not fatal. Dreams require sacrifice. Betrayal and heartbreak are part of the journey. If you dare to dream big, you must dare to risk everything. He once said, "The difference between winning and losing is most often not quitting." The next time you're tempted to give up, the next time you think your dream is too big, your road too hard, remember a boy with $40 in his pocket who drew a mouse. Remember a man who built castles out of failures. Remember Walt Disney. If Walt Disney's story inspired you today, remember, the castle you dream of building, the stories you dream of telling, the life you dream of living, they are all possible if you refuse to quit. Believe in your dreams. Protect them fiercely. Fight for them bravely. Because the world needs dreamers. It needs your dream. If this story stirred something inside you, subscribe to our channel for more real, life-changing stories. Like, comment, and share with someone who needs a reminder. Magic is real, and it begins with you. Start building your magic today. Start now. Because in the words of Walt Disney himself, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing.